Even at the height of the popularity of former Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, it was clear she had two constituencies. Overseas, notably in America, England and Australia, she was a pop phenomenon, partly because she seemed the opposite of their own leaders. Upbeat, attractive, intelligent, on the right side of history. What wasn't to like?
I think I have natural levels of anxiety for someone who's 37 years old and who's also pregnant. Every time I got on a plane, I would look out a window and I would think, from that mountain to that river, that is my responsibility. Oh, well, this is normal.
Well, the answer to that question was at home. The hostility she generated later on was as poisonous as it was irrational. There was a swirl of imported conspiracy theories. She was both a Nazi and secretly Jewish, claimed two adjacent placards outside Parliament at one stage. That and some homegrown sexist bigotry all stood in the way of a local biopic anytime soon. So it was up to an American film to co-produce Prime Minister.
I just need to focus on the evidence and the science and the modelling and the right thing to do. This is sitting between me and going to sleep now. This and you. So.
In fact, much of the film was shot by a Kiwi, the ultimate insider, Clarke Gayford, Jacinda Ardern's partner. Well, this means we get to see lots of footage of baby Neve for the first time, as well as plenty of domestic coverage of some of the most dramatic 4 or 5 years of our recent history.
Are you fake carrying washing around the room?
And whatever your thoughts about Ardern's politics, it can't be denied it's a pretty astonishing story. Into Parliament in her 20s, sailing through the ranks to become Deputy Leader of the Opposition, and then, on the strength of her growing celebrity, remember Jacinda Mania, her boss Andrew Little gallantly stepped aside just before the election.
Do you think you can credibly lead a government?
Would you like to tell me why you don't think I can?
All eyes have now turned to Jacinda Ardern.
Step up to the plate or watch your party die.
She won, or rather Winston Peters awarded her the Prime Ministership, and then laid out her plans for her first 100 days. Global warming, child poverty, reform of parental leave and university fees. But you know what they say about the God's attitude to plans? We regularly see Ardern listening to an audio diary of the time and wincing.
I have 3 years to do as much as we can.
But in the back of my mind, I thought, how am I going to do this with a baby?
I just feel sorry for myself listening to that because I just have no idea what's coming. Absolutely no idea.
Even aside from the fact she was pregnant, the crises came thick and fast. White Island and the awful Christchurch mosque shooting stopped New Zealand in its tracks in 2019. And that was the year before the global disaster that came to define the Jacinda Ardern years, the COVID pandemic.
There were 2 groups on the island, those who were evacuated and those close to the eruption.
We only have 6 cases at the moment.
This can only be described as a terrorist attack.
It's an indication of selective memory how much of what's covered in Prime Minister, and covered very well I thought, was stuff I'd forgotten, while much of the rest of the world seemed resigned to letting thousands of people die as the price to pay for keeping business going. Here we tried something else.
I had the very best scientific advice, the best public health advice, great ministers. But it still sat squarely on me.
Guided by the best scientific advice here and overseas, we locked down the country with the almost total support of the country at the time. It was a surreal period, like scenes out of 28 Days Later, with all our cities silent and deserted. And then in the middle of it all, Jacinda Ardern seemed to be taking all of this on her own shoulders.
Crises make governments and they break governments.
If things went wrong, it was my job to fix it.
Well, that was later the attitude of her critics too. Somehow she and COVID became entwined in certain circles, as if she'd invented the virus and specifically inflicted it on her enemies. There is some attempt to touch on Jacinda's uneasiness at wearing the crown for all of us.
I was 14 years old when someone first used the term imposter syndrome. And it was just like something clicked. I just had a bit of a fear that I shouldn't be there.
Well, thankfully we don't go too far down that rabbit hole. Yes, imposter syndrome is a thing, and one you wish more leaders suffered from, rather than the more common pompous entitlement.
I'm going to go and have an early night. Be nice to see you sometime.
Yep.
Early start again in the morning.
Yeah.
Instead, we're invited to look at someone who, for a while, seemed to bring out the best in us, particularly in the eyes of the rest of the world. Even where she missed the mark, at least she seemed to be aiming for something decent and worthwhile. And then madness when she brought out the absolute worst in a surprising number of New Zealanders.
It's hard to switch on the news some days and just think the world is a dumpster fire. How do we shine a light on the humanity I know is still there?
The word kindness in particular seemed to turn people cross-eyed with fury, an insanely disproportionate reaction against a leader whose major crime seemed to be trying to keep us alive.
You can be anxious, sensitive, kind. You can be a mother, a nerd, a crier. You can be all of these things. And you can lead just like me.
Prime Minister is one for the fans. Clarke Gayford is one of the producers. But even for Jacinda skeptics, it's fascinating and heartwarming. Whatever the opinion of the naysayers, Prime Minister's message to the young, especially young girls, is a good and positive one, unlike, sadly, the view of her enemies.